life pushes us to the edge, when the silence inside feels louder than any voice outside, that's when many begin to wonder if there's a way back to light. Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast with your host, Sana. And today's conversation, it's not about statistics or clinical terms. It's about the soul and about those moments when suicidal thoughts aren't signs of weakness, but signals that something deep within us is crying out to be heard, to be healed. And listeners, my guest knows this journey firsthand, not from textbooks, but from the ashes of her own collapse, losing a thriving business, facing family breakdown, and nearly losing herself. And yet, from that breaking point, she uncovered a method of healing that helps others shift from despair to peace, sometimes in hours, not years. So, everyone, all my beautiful listeners, let's sit together in honesty, in compassion, and in courage because this episode might just be the lifeline someone listening needs today. And listeners, meet my incredible guest, Mridula Agarwal. So, Mridula, welcome to the show, and it's really so good to have you back again with us.
Thank you, Sana. Thank you for having me back again. It is really incredible for me also to come back and have a detailed, soulful discussions about so many topics we've already spoken about. So thank you for having me again.
Mridula, it's always my pleasure and honor. Um, so let's first begin with your journey. You know, you have shared very openly that your darkest moments were the doorway to your purpose. Um, if you can, share like what did those first days of collapse feel like inside your body and mind? Were they did they make you feel like you were trapped inside a cage or a box or some kind of dungeon that you are not, you may not even be able to get out of?
So physically in my body, the symptoms was being stuck. You know how somebody can get stuck, not being able to move, not being able to breathe, not able to think clearly, and the feeling of being
Mhm.
trapped, stuck or trapped. That I want to make changes. I want things to change around me. And if only somebody could, an angel could come and swoop me out of it, maybe things would suddenly be better. And then as I, navigated my own journey, I realized nobody's going to come to help me. That was quite
Okay.
heartbreaking. Nobody was going to come to save me. And at best, what I can do is I can utilize variety of modalities, services, methods that are coming to me and take them one minute by minute and get myself out of it. Now it sounds very fancy, but it's something like I am drowning and I know that nobody's gonna come to save me. And then I have to, in that moment, figure out how do I learn the swimming or invent a way of breathing underwater to keep myself afloat and eventually get myself out, which is a very difficult thing. Or it's like I'm bleeding and there is no doctor, there's a very deep cut. But in that moment, I have to figure out how to perform a surgery on myself all by myself.
Yeah.
So, quite clearly, it's not a very great feeling because it's a feeling filled with a lot of loneliness. And that's the moment where you really wish that I can peacefully at least collapse. But the life doesn't even give you a luxury to collapse because you can't. If you will, then there will be further damage. And it's like a train wreck you are caught in. The time is of essence. If you're going to delay the help, the problem is going to get worsen for you and for people around you. So every minute you are, steeping in these negative thoughts, blame game, feeling sorry for yourself, getting angry over things, or, people who have spoiled or pushed you to this edge, uh, angry over people who were supposed to help you but they didn't. You can feel all of that, okay? Helplessness, restlessness, anger, revenge, betrayal, whatever. This is a whole cocktail of all negative and very heavy duty emotions. And moment you start feeling all of that, you will also start feeling that there is no hope. That's the worst thing. And that's the worst damage that happens in someone's mind if they are through a lot in their life. So when we look in the future, in that moment, we do not feel any hope. We feel there is no point in continuing like this. Because even if I one more time get well, even if one more time I'm able to pull myself out of financial mess, let's assume one more time I start becoming hopeful that, tomorrow could be better. Firstly, that hope doesn't come. Everything looks dark. And let's assume that hope somehow magically does appear. The next minute, my head will the thought will come to me that, oh, even if tomorrow is a gonna be bright day, on the third day, things will again be gloomy because world is a dark place. Look around, no one is happy. There are so many wars happening, children are crying, daily so many innocent animals are slaughtered. In every home, every person is suffering either mentally, emotionally, physically. The relations are all useless. So many people who are so well educated, they're geniuses or they're outperformers, they are in destitute poverty, not able to earn a living.
Mhm.
Like that, I will look around. I looked around and I saw that everyone has issue. And then it got magnified further that world is a place of suffering. You look at any religion, you look at any philosophy, spirituality, any school of thought, and they will say this world is a place of suffering. And then you look forward and you say it further magnifies. Maybe in so many different lifetimes, I have just been suffering and suffering and suffering. What is the whole point of even living if I'm only here to suffer? And that is when the final thought comes. I want to escape the matrix. Some people feel I wish to end my life. And some people, very rare people, I guess, like me, who will take charge like a warrior. I will turn things around. How dare you, universe? So, but still, it's a very dark spot in my journey. I never had suicidal thoughts. God only knows what kind of soil or character I'm being drafted out of. I never had any suicidal thoughts. I had a lot of uh, vengeful thoughts for everyone who has done me ever wrong. I will not spare you. And let me come back and show you. I had those kind of thoughts. They are also not healthy. They never did anything good to me either, but at least they were not suicidal thoughts.
Hmm.
But then there is another tangent. A lot of people feel that everyone has betrayed me. There is no hope in today. When they look into the future, they find even if I get myself out of it, there will be no point of living. Let me end my life. There is also, that kind of thought process as well with a lot of
And, did you share these thoughts, these feelings with someone else? Sometimes, especially we someone who is in deep pain, frustration, anger, feeling betrayed, they do not want to, kind of, people very popularly call it as, trauma dump. That
Mm,
I do not want to share my trauma with my loved ones because I do not want to disturb them or,
mm,
disturb their, way of living. They'll stop everything and they'll come to me. So I do not want that. So let me not share anything with them. Let me not disturb anyone. Let
mm.
me just process everything on my own. And uh, do you think that's a very dangerous place to be in?
Actually, in my experience,
Mm-hmm.
um, trauma dump is not healthy, neither for someone who is sharing and nor for the person who is taking the dump. It's not useful. I mean, if I am crying and if I have thousands of things running in my head, and if I go and talk to my loved one who is very empathetic and very attached to me,
Mm-hmm.
the maximum is gonna what is gonna happen is, see, when you share trauma, people feel that, if I share, my problem is gonna reduce. I will feel light. Actually, this is not true. When you share the problem doubles. Because now, firstly, I am worried. Already, I am in a mess, and then I go and tell my loved one, let's say my mother, my brother, my parents, or my um, friends that all of this is happening, and all of a sudden they start feeling sorry for me, they start feeling my pain, and then they
Mm.
are also, and they, plus I'm pretty sure everyone has their own trauma or their own challenges, so I have added on my problem onto them.
Mm.
Now, will some solution come out of it? If there is someone in the whole lot who is very mentally well trained, emotionally resilient, because of their work profile, because of their life experiences, because of upbringing or the natural vibe that they have, then maybe yes, somebody can perhaps recognize that, okay, fine, all these thoughts that you are having, you need to see someone. I am not in position to help you, or I think this requires some higher level intervention. Sometimes, and very rarely, it leads to that. Otherwise, the whole conversation is an action reaction. Oh, this happened to you. Why didn't you do this? I will go and do this on your behalf. Or you will start bickering or bitching or abusing the people who you are already blaming.
Mm.
Or you will end up feeling sorry. So
Mm.
though trauma dumping a lot of people do not do because they don't want to disturb the loved ones, it is good. Uh, I mean, say it is useful. But it
Mhm.
can also backfire because then other people have no idea that what is going on with you, and how, in case you need help, what kind of help do you need, what is happening.
Mm.
So rather than dumping, I think in that moment, like in my case also, I try to share it with people. A lot of time you don't even get the correct response, you get judgments or you get
Yeah.
pity,
Yeah.
and that comes, or you find people dissecting the situation and pointing out to you that all these things happen to you because even you did not conduct yourself properly. You also have thousands of issues, so they start rationalizing, justifying, labeling, blaming things back at you,
Mm.
which is a kind of like a judgment only. Then people may start avoiding you if you are being too I would say volatile, emotionally unstable,
Yeah.
and you are,
Yeah.
you are too cranky or constantly crying like an emotional mess. After a point, nobody is going to take that too.
Mm.
So, quite unfortunately, though we say that, may everybody live healthily and free of suffering, the fact is the suffering is quite self created, and whoever is enduring it, they have to find their own way to get out of it. You can take professional help, or you can follow the guidance that universe will send to you through whispers or through synchronicities, but somewhere or another you will have to find your path back into light.
Mm.
Nobody else can do that for you. Maybe they can hold vigilance for you, maybe they can hold a bit compassion for you, but it is your journey. You have to walk. Whether you share it with someone or not, that's a choice.
Mm. This, I think listeners, they might recognize themselves, uh, in those moments of silence or shame or that sudden withdrawal. And I
Hmm.
think this really flips the narrative, or maybe the thought that, uh, to see that, they are not broken, but the inner self of them is shouting for change, signaling for change. So it's kind of, comes at an individual level that, we have to do this.
Actually, see, every time I have spoken to a suicidal ideation, anyone who is doing a suicidal ideation or they have thoughts, I have found it is not always necessary that person will have a clear cut suicidal thought that they recognize as, I am having suicidal thoughts.
Oh, okay.
Like, for example, someone, let's say, who is in 30s, and their life has been a typical life that in up till school they were average student, in college they did certain subjects which perhaps
Mhm.
could be of their choice, or maybe they were deviation from their original choices.
Yep.
Post graduation was done in certain place, they got into a job or they got married, whatever was their life trajectory, they had couple of kids, they found a partner, like they settled down, whatever. And by the time they're in 30s, now apparently, if you look at it from the surface, nothing majorly has gone wrong other than the small setbacks. Some people have nothing in their history which can say or which can be pointed as, okay, this was the major, um, mm, I would say, blast or a major trauma which is attributed to for this kind of a thought process, and they
Mhm.
themselves are not aware. Okay, so these are the people who are talking normal, but you can hear it in their energy, like the person's tone. I had to just
Mhm.
woke up every day and this is what I had to do, and I did it. Means that the tone is like this, I have no other option. I did it like a resignation. I had to get up every day. What other option is there? Like if there was another option, I would have preferred not to get up. I went to my friends and family. Okay, it is there. I have to. Like, what other option do I have in life? In this point of time, when this kind of language and this kind of energy starts showing up, they might be at a point of deep dissatisfaction. And at this
Mhm.
point of time, if their friend, their family, they start talking, why are you so dissatisfied? Enjoy. Just, dress up, go out, eat well, sleep well, let's go for a trip, let's go for a mall, let's watch a movie. I mean, okay, fine. They may be temporarily uplifted. But at this
Mhm.
point of time, they're still dissatisfied without being able to decode it themselves that they are dissatisfied to the point that they might want to escape this life. What is causing this dissatisfaction? Where is it coming from? What exactly do they want? If not this, then what? They will have no answer.
Mm.
It starts off with something as simple as this. And one tipping point, and that one tipping point can be there was an argument at home. The argument itself was not big, but that one particular argument, it will trigger the series of flashes in their head, and they will feel completely, ejected out of their body. I don't want to be here. There is no other way. I have gotten trapped. Exit. And they may do something drastic, not like to commit suicide, but an extreme emotional reaction.
Mm. Mm.
And if this cycle goes on, if the people around them, so a lot of time the other person, like if one person is given an extreme emotional reaction, they get labeled as, oh, you have anger issues. You keep on shouting. You,
Mhm.
I have not done anything which is making you react this way. Are you okay? So rather than understanding their frustration, the other person has ended up labeling the other person.
Mm.
And these kind of responses make situation further worse without either of them understanding what is making the situation worse. What has actually happened for it to get this worse?
Mm.
So 8 months, 1 year, 2 year down the line, maybe this person, this kind of symptom, it may subside in the undercurrent, but it could set in as depression, or it could escalate to a point where the person either look for a
Mm.
solution successfully, and if they are not able to look for a solution for whatever dissatisfaction they think is the source, then they might get into this void where they feel permanently trapped. There is no solution. I have done everything. I have thought about everything. And I know for a fact nothing is gonna change. And I cannot live like this. So let me take my life or do something trust.
Mm. Yeah, totally makes sense. Very makes sense for them. Yeah. And I believe, I mean, I shouldn't say that I was scary, but it's kind of, very interesting to see that, even small, tiny moments or those moments of argument or maybe a particular word told to them, they can trigger these, train of thoughts, this train of
Yeah.
thoughts with them. That's, I think, something very interesting.
So these triggers, like in healing, we always say that rather than being caught up in the cycle of reaction, you need to understand. So there's a difference between an emotion and a feeling. So, for example, if somebody is being told, you do nothing, for
Mhm.
example, and person ends up reacting big time, angry that, how dare you say this to me? I've been working whole day and XYZ,
Mhm.
whatever I do, it is never ever. Now, the anger is a emotion.
Mm.
What is a deeper down feeling? That some people could be feeling that I'm not being respected enough.
Mhm.
Some people may feel invisible, that even after doing this much, this person is not able to do it. I have given everything of my own and yet I'm not getting anything back. Or
Yeah.
I am doing everything to the point of my exhaustion and yet it is not enough for this person.
Mm.
So that is that inner mechanics, what is happening in their emotional, in the mental level or at their deeper level, that is a feeling, which is coming out in the form of an emotion. So the trigger word, you do not do anything, is basically telling you, and that emotional response that you have is basically showing you a window of how much you want. For example, if someone is like, I have done everything for you,
Mhm.
and yet you feel like this. That trigger is showing you that maybe you are overextending yourself to the point of exhaustion, all in the process, all in the want of gaining approval. And maybe you need to correct your boundaries. Or it could be telling you you are with the wrong person. No matter how much you do for this person, he or she will never understand.
Mm.
It could be telling you that you are doing a lot of things, but you are doing all the wrong things, the things which do not even matter. So they hold no value. But the trigger, because it keeps you trapped in the emotional cycle, the deeper meaning of it does not get coded. Does not get decoded. And as a result, when this person who is triggered and has already given an emotional reaction, this person goes and talk to their friends or family or anyone, they are also just helping them to calm down and just process that emotional response.
Mm.
Very rarely it so happens that a senior person, an elder person, or a mature person in their vicinity will be able to decode that all of this is coming from XYZ deeper place. This has got nothing to do with what that person has said. This has got everything to do with how you have sacrificed your own life. And then you are hearing this sentence, which is making you go wild.
Mm.
So, the suicidal thoughts or the deeper mechanics, if you will investigate, it is not just one episode. Usually, it is never just one episode. Sometimes it can be one shattering, bombastic episode as well, that something has happened. All of a sudden, overnight, someone's business has collapsed and they just couldn't process that kind of a shock. Someone just died, and they feel like I cannot live without this person. Or for example, somebody got cheated upon by the person they loved and trusted with everything, and all of a sudden their whole mental state, like they have a huge perception fallout that nothing and nobody in this world can be trusted, and if this person has betrayed me behind my back, then I don't know whom I can trust, and without trusting, this life is meaningless. I might as well commit suicide. So these are very rare cases in which something is inspired by a very shattering um, moment. But usually, suicide is not something which uh, happens overnight. Usually, I have seen people are harboring these small dissatisfactions over the course of years, many years. And after a certain point, it becomes, it reaches a boiling point where they have already tried many methods and failed, where they have already tried to spoken to a lot of people and found themselves not properly attended. And
So much.
and this is so dangerous because these are the very same people whom you will find they are seen in all the pictures smiling. These are the people who are seen in kitty parties, in office gatherings, in outings, on Instagram vacations. And if you look at those pictures and if you meet them on the outside, they will look normal. And they have not, and if they have harboring suicidal thoughts, that will come in moments, that will come in phases, that will be not be very long drawn. So maybe 2 days, 3 days, couple of hours or couple of minutes would be the frequency of these suicidal thoughts. And one particular day, maybe there will be a tipping point, an emotional trigger, something that could, make them lose it. And in couple of hours, they will do something. They may end up doing drastic. And that kind of what I will do, they may have had been planning that if someday I have to commit suicide, they would already had purchased a rope from couple of months back. They would already have some poison kept in their cupboard for just in case scenarios. So which shows they if the preparation was happening in so many months because a part of them was calculating it underneath for so many months. I know someone who, I mean, I don't know the person directly, but I know it through the family which lost that person. That this particular man, he planned his suicide in a way that he had drafted a will. So, like, I think he was planning it for 1 year.
Wow.
He drafted his will, he transferred the assets, he made a whole Excel sheet of passwords and nominee details and all the documents so that his wife and children will not suffer. Everything that needed to be done, the rent was paid in advance, the house bills were paid in advance, the property taxes were paid in certain point. There was a proper way in which, he had planned the entire finances, the life insurance, everything he had done. So it was a very calculative decision.
Mm, mm, mm.
So these people are not insane.
Damn.
Anyone who is committing, it's not in a fit that you did something. Maybe, of course, sometimes it can happen in a fit also. But usually it is never a fit alone, which is sufficient enough to, push people beyond certain points.
Mm. This is a very, very important insight, Nadra. Very important insight. Because, uh, as you mentioned about that, you know, it may happen sometimes in a fit.
Mm.
Uh, this person was mentally ill. That's why they committed it. They committed suicide. But, you mentioned that, it was a very calculated plan. Like everything was prepared. He was in bed for a year. So, uh, first of all, it's very vague to identify them as illness, and you describe them as soul level signals. Now, that is something very, very different. I have never read or seen or heard anyone talking about, uh, you know, these suicidal thoughts are soul level signals. So, how do we begin to reframe them without minimizing their danger? So that people they do not feel that we are trying to negate or minimize the danger here just by calling them soul level signals.
So when I say it's a soul level signal, or when it has gotten to a point where they want to end their own life, in a moment, in a fit, or in a very long drawn, slowly boiling over till the boiling point kind of a phase. What is happening in their head? You have to understand the mechanics of the mind and how emotions and body is entangled with it. Somewhere in their lens, let's say from the childhood till whatever, like 30s, 40s, whatever age they are in, they have viewed a world in a way where they have uh, mapped all the hurts, all the betrayals, all the failures, all the disappointments in themselves, in others, in the world by a certain uh, tangent. Like, for example, somebody might feel, since childhood, I have never gotten things my way. I am just getting hurt, and nobody takes care of me. Now, all of these
Mm.
things, all of these statements have gotten snowballed at next stage, which is like, even now I have changed my friends, but the story is same, and I am unlovable, and I am like this, and I am like that, and maybe I should cut myself, hurt myself, and if I cease to exist, only then the world will be good place. Some people have that narrow track record, okay? Now it has reached to level 3, level 4, and by the level 5th, it will become a tipping point. But when you look at the first degree statements from this person, nobody loves me and I have always been getting hurt. At this point of time, it's a perception.
Yeah.
And those experiences, so people are watching movies in their head, okay? Like when I look at my childhood, in my head, I'm actually viewing an image of, let's say, my maternal grandma's home. That's my childhood, my mulberry tree. That is symbolic of my
Yeah.
childhood. In my head, my childhood is when I used to look in a certain way, or some photograph of me when I'm with my whole family in a certain place. So that's an image which is driven by a memory. It's a real memory. I was there and this happened. And that is also part of my physical body. Every time you look at the image in your head, your heart goes out, or you feel blue, or you feel pink, or you feel light. So that image also holds a physical level association with you. Now, this person who is looking at certain images, nobody loved me. I was always getting hurt. From that moment till the moment I should end my life, only if I do not exist, the world will be a good place. There are thousands of perceptions which are built over each other, all magnified out of proportion, distorted where they are no longer reality. But because they're sequenced and sequestered and interlinked in a way, they cannot be argued out of it. And the whole body is physically entangled with it. With every memory, they are having a negative emotion, and it has snowballed to a point where the body has simply become numb and they really want to end their life. Like the whole body will say, let's jump off the cliff, let's jump off the building. Now, when we are saying suicidal ideation handling without minimizing their hurt, but yet getting them out of the point, in the healing, we are helping them to unlock different perspectives which have gotten linked and interlinked and gotten out of control in the first place. So, the very first impression that you are carrying, that I was not loved and everybody hated me. If you look at that memory and if you start putting certain relevant energies on it, if you start doing certain processing with those images, if you start retrieving certain soul level pieces out of it, and after the process is done, that same person will look at that entire image and will wake up from that illusion that they were never loved.
Mm.
And the funny thing is, part of them also knows that that statement may not be 100% true. Because even a person who is, born in a prison, let's say children who are born to the prisoners and they have not seen the outside world, even then, even if you are, completely caged up inside a completely dark room with only one window, even there, the way the sun rays enter your room, the way a bird will occasionally chirp and visit you from the window, the way you will form friendship with maybe a mouse or the insects in that room, life always finds a life. You will still have happiness even in a fleeting form.
Mm.
That is, if you read the experiences of prisoners across, even though they were getting brutally tortured, even then there was something that kept them alive and hopeful, and also in some moments happy.
Mhm.
So even in the worst situation, that statement that I nobody loved me and I was hated is never right. It's always wrong.
Mm.
So when they start, so the first step is to help them acknowledge the truth. And truth has many sides to it. There are many kinds of and all levels of truth. So moment they start looking, moment we put energy and we start retrieving different parts of them, the part of them which could feel joy, the part of them which was hopeful of better future, the part of them which really had some connection with someone, even if it was a stray cat. When you start retrieving all of those images and the parts of them which knows how to love, connect, enjoy, and feel life, they will start reorganizing their whole body, their whole mind will start forming a different perception. They may come to this point that, okay, fine, I was loved, but not loved enough. I had difficulties because I ran with the wrong kind of people. But in some other places, I did have some good connections. For whatever reason, I did not pursue them. I had business opportunities and obligations, financial obligations, or whatever the relationship obligations, which weighed me down. But in those relations or somewhere outside, I did have friends who cared for me and family who looked for me. So the darkness starts lifting up. And in that moment, the possibility starts opening up in their mind that, okay, in future, if I now that I look at it from a different view, I do realize that I do have an option of doing things differently.
Mm.
Which means now when they
Yes.
look at future, they see a different possibility out of it. Because when they look at a past, they do see there was a different way of doing it. I couldn't do it. Or there were things that happened, but it did not uh, register in my attention in that way.
Mm.
So when they this time look at the future, when they look at the past and they say, oh my God, how many things did I end up missing and drawing wrong conclusions? And they look at the future, then they find out so many possibilities that they had failed to see earlier, but they have now recognized.
Mm.
And that is how the chicken and egg story, which came first, it breaks by itself. Because when you have more options and you see that those options are going to give you happiness, they're going to give you love, they're going to give you reputation, they're going to give you respect, or whatever it is that you desire, there is a way to do it. And that is a possibility, a real living possibility of doing it. Then the whole mathematics, I need to commit suicide because there is no other way, is rubbish by itself.
Like the first breath you take after, you like you are drowning and get out of the
Yeah.
water.
Hmm. So that gasp, that's enough. In that moment, you realize. Yeah. So that, that again, it's a awakening. It's your soul, which was always so person who was not constantly having thoughts. What was happening in their head was part of them was like, this life is useless and nobody loves me and nobody cares for me and I should erase myself out of this existence and blah, 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 blah. So that was giving them this depression, this suicidal ideation, this trauma, whatever you may call it, this darkness. But simultaneously, there was also another part of them which kept on pushing. Oh, let's try one more day. Oh, this was fun. Oh, maybe let's go and meet that person. Or maybe let's visit a pub. Oh, look, today the roses which have bloomed are so beautiful.
Mm.
So there was a part of them which was in the quest of living. And there was a part of them which was adding up everything and snowball it to the point that it did not wish to continue because it did not see any point of continuing with life.
Mm.
So, because of this seesaw that was happening in their own head, the split in their own mental and emotional body, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I wait for one more day? Is life really bad? Another part of it will be like, no, life is not really that bad, which is on the external surface looks like this person is smiling the next one moment and maybe have a total collapse the next moment.
Mm.
So we never minimize, we never ridicule, and we never even sensitively handle it. We allow the person, we recognize that you are not broken and
Mm.
you are not someone who has any issue. Like I know that, um, you are powerful enough to find your own solutions. And I will
Yeah.
help you to allow those solutions to come to you naturally.
Yeah.
And moment that person does their own maths, it's gonna fix it by itself. And there's a very beautiful prayer for it. uh,
Okay.
it's a medicine, like it's as a healer we have this prayer. So the prayer goes like this: I will not rescue you, for you are not powerless. I will not fix you, for you are not broken. I will not heal you, for I see you in your wholeness. I will walk with you through the darkness as you remember your light.
Wow, that is, and beautiful is an under, it doesn't rightfully adjectify these words. Really.
So
Very meaningful. Mhm.
you have to re remember. The whole brand of mine is I reawake, is built on a premise that you're already awakened. You have forgotten.
Hmm.
So you need to reawake yourself and re remember who you are and what you are capable of.
That's really very profound, Nirmala. Um, and I would like to bring another aspect here. And you gave the example of a person in their 30s, like the average, the
Mm.
traditional, the conventional, studies, then degree, then job, marriage, everything, house, and everything. Yet, um, deep down, something is still like they're still having those feelings of self judgment, or they're frustrated. Now, often we hear about generational trauma or karmic weight, inherited pain, and you have actually spoken about societal urges, sometimes being rooted in karmic imprints or inherited trauma. And Nidra, personally, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but kind of feels very out of the world that while growing up, I never realized. But when now I'm understanding how the world works, how people are actually, how it is not always happy go lucky or it's not always fluff, I have realized that, I carry a lot of generation trauma. Sometimes I feel that I am here to break that cycle, that, that typical um, generational um, traditions, and kind of being a black sheep in there, because I'm something different. I'm doing things differently than what my ancestors have done. I completely think with a different thought process. Sometimes to that extent that I have arguments, or of course healthy constructive discussions with my family, especially with my father. But this is how I think. And then at the same time, I'll have a bit of a feeling of happiness and energy, but at the same time I'll feel that weight on my shoulders to break that ancestral trauma, because I'll feel that I don't want my next generations to suffer, or take the weight. I don't want to pass on that weight to my future generations, my upcoming generations. So uh, how can someone know if what they are carrying is truly theirs or something that has been passed down over them?
Everyone is, all of us are carrying, we are just torch bearers and we are just being lit up from the previous flame and we will do the same to the next generation. Now,
Hmm.
we are sum total of our blood, our own many lifetimes, our own ancestral lines, our own experiences, the character that we are born with. It's a sum total of a lot of things. The true power anybody has is to take control and take charge of removing what is not working and building what you need to be at any given moment by your own will. Which means I'm not going to be dependent on the waves of the ocean or the cycles of the moon or some fate of the lightning struck being stuck on my head to one day wake up to feeling like a glorious hero and do something amazing. No, I take charge and I start from the place I am already amazing. And let's do something which makes me feel complete, which makes me do things that I want, where I feel connected with myself and with the universal rhythm. And from that place of faith, not even faith, I would say unity, that, you move and the world moves by itself. You become the world. You become complete. That is the integration. That is the sadhana. That is mastering of oneself, which is methodic, which is a people say it's a journey. It's a journey, but it is not a journey of ideally many, many lifetimes. If you choose the right practices, if you choose the right techniques in a right sequence, uh, you can do it. I mean, as fast as like in 20 years, you can clear up generation like lifetimes of karmas, generations and generations of your future as well as of your past generations in 20 years, step by step, systematically. Because no matter where you are born and what you do, whether you are the born with a silver spoon or whether you're born as a black sheep, you are still part of that lineage, which means your whole codes are riddled and mixed up with a lot of emotional trauma, genetic trauma, generational trauma, the era you are born in, the gender you are of, the color your skin carries, the stories you've heard as a child, the experiences that have shaped you. That will always
Yep.
be there.
Yes.
Even today, if you clear up everything, your own children and the next generation will have their own karmas to burn. So do not feel the weight of someone else's karma on yourself. You can only clear up your own self and hope and pray that your children do learn from you and are born from the same lineage. But we have seen time and again that the most elite, most evolved and most illustrious beings on planet have the most challenging parenting journey.
Yes.
So I don't think it's fair for anyone to take it as a burden. I think it should be taken as a journey. Let's see what I can be best. Let's see what is it that I can unlock for myself.
Mm, mm.
Be curious, be excited, be on this voyage. Okay, what next today? Up till yesterday, I was hopelessly munching on high calorie food. Can I get myself addicted to something which is nice and fresh and light?
Mm,
Up until 2 years back, I was a sucker for losers. Let me see if I am now this time able to naturally attract high performers in my life.
mm,
Up till 3 years back, I had this mixed XYZ mentality for money. And this is at the level of discomfort I had with my close relatives or my friends and family.
mhm.
Can I evolve them into better people by becoming better myself? Let me figure that out.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's a path to light where you are on a quest to figure things out so that you can be better and people around you can be better because of you.
definitely. Definitely. You become the beacon of light.
Yeah. And that starts with firstly dropping the shadows within you by healing the shadows that we all carry.
Yes. Yes. That makes so much sense, Madhura. Personally, and I'm very sure our listeners will also realize that uh, instead of blaming ourselves, sometimes we do carry stories older than us, but this healing, the inner light, it still starts with us.
It still starts with us, but it's very challenging if you're especially doing it all by yourself. And it's a huge
Yeah.
mental, emotional labyrinth. Okay. It's like this whole maze you can get lost in for years altogether. Okay. Because you do need someone to hold a light for you so that you can use it like a North Star in your own life.
Mhm, mhm.
So quite definitely that is why it is said that you cannot have spiritual journeys without a guru or without a guide. You
Mm.
cannot learn everything by yourself because a lot of these learnings are by vibration. If someone is crying and somebody sits next to it, possibly their mood will also get ruined. But if
Yep.
the you are sitting next to a guru, the guru will hold their light in a way that you will end up emptying yourself out of the sadness without affecting the other person. That's the energy they use. That's an impact of their presence in your life. That is what the function of light is for you, to dispel the darkness. So you cannot be continuously groping in the dark to figure out where the switch is. Let's not waste time with that. Ask someone to show you the light.
And I have a question on this, Mithila. So, uh, and as you mentioned about gurus, now sometimes uh, there are positive um, uh, vibrations, uplifting vibrations, but then at the same time, um, there are vibrations or energies, or through someone who will say, or which will say that I'm here to rescue you. I am the one who will take you out of your miseries. So just surrender yourself to me. How do we identify that, who, which, or what kind of vibration energy will give me or at least support me to get out of this darkness, to find that switch, not engulf me into the darkness by luring me that they will take me out of the darkness?
That's a catch. Usually, what happens when you are in the darkness, you will attract dark people. And if
Hmm.
you need light people, then you need to feel some light by yourself to be able to attract light. Okay. Now, there are traditionally the first step if someone is taking, you can ask for divine guidance. Like, for example, like even in my own journey, uh, I have had many, many nights in which I would constantly be emotionally very disturbed and constantly be praying inside my heart that God, this is not fair. I did nothing wrong in my life to deserve this, and you need to do something about it. And this happened for 6 months. And then one fine day, one neighbor of mine, and who is exactly the opposite door, and Mumbai homes do not have very big corridors. So when I say exactly bang opposite, I meant like literally 2 steps away. So
Oh. Oh.
I met her in the lift, and she was a Reiki grandmaster. She is a Reiki grandmaster, and she told me everything that you are experiencing. Out of nowhere, she spoke to me in the lift. I was quiet, she was quiet, and she must have had guessed that whatever situation I was in, not to the details, but of course, by looking at me, it was visible. It was very visible in my energy. And she said, everything that you are experiencing is karmic. And I'm holding this Usui Reiki level 2. I said, I've already done Usui Reiki 2. So she said,
Okay.
actually, you need Usui Reiki level 3, but that I cannot teach you because it is by spiritual qualification. Only if a master identifies that you're ready for it, only then you get it. So she said, I cannot give you Usui Reiki 3A right now, but you can repeat Usui Reiki 2. And I have a class happening this weekend.
Okay.
Now, because I was operating from light, there was a part of me which was, of course, terribly complaining and bitter and stuck up with emotional mess. There was also a part of me which was always communicating and communing with the universe. And that was the part which pulled in a light master to me.
Hmm.
So, if you're going to be an emotional mess and you go out and meet people, in from that state, the chances are you will be taken advantage of or you will meet the wrong people. So get yourself, the first step will be get yourself into a space wherein you can even momentarily feel that yes, things will work out. I don't know how, but God, I trust you and you need to send someone. And if you yourself can come, great. But still, if you cannot come, I know you are busy, send someone.
Yeah.
So the energy from which you work, and
Mhm.
that is going to be the paramount. So the all the moments in which someone who is having a hard time, if you find your friends and family in those brighter moments, that would be the right moment to make those prayers, to chart the good course, to figure out some options, not when they are in the deepest shadows and crying. That is not the time to lecture them or to tell them, don't worry about it. They're too deep in Shira. They will not be able to understand. Moment they are in a little better or stable state, that is the moment you take them to some place where they can, sit and meditate on some solutions. They can ask universe for some help. They can and make it like a 10-day, 12-day or 21 days routine until it is solidified in their body that their body can start anticipating. Though in their head they cannot see anyone popping, but their body starts anticipating, yes, someone is on their way to help me. I am soon going to receive help. And then if someone does arrive, in that case also, go back to the same place where you originally made visit, like in your head or even to a physical mandir or some place where you sat down and meditated. And then check with the universe one more time. Hey, I'm getting this signal. Is this the person? Like for me, moment that auntie she spoke to me, I knew she was God sent. In that very moment, I knew.
Hmm. That's really, really wonderful. And now I would like to shift the conversation to a bit of a different tangent, to a bit different tangent now. Mridula, we often hear people very casually saying things like, I want to kill myself. Oh my goodness, looking at this, I just want to, I feel like I would commit suicide. Eh,
Hmm.
Very casually. I mean, I um personally, people do call, sometimes, you are very sensitive. Can't you take, dark jokes or statements like that? Just as a joke or just as casual. But sometimes I feel that they could be damaging. In your opinion, Mridula, how damaging can that kind of language be for those who are truly struggling with suicidal thoughts?
People who are struggling with suicidal thoughts probably will not use that language. It is people who are just super frustrated. They use this language. This job is killing me. My head is killing me. My life is killing me. I just want to kill myself. And initially, it may have sounded off like a cool thing, or maybe they didn't pay a lot of attention to it. But your thoughts and your words are power. Okay, the words carry energy. That is why we have so many chants written in a certain way in a certain sequence because they carry a certain energy. Now, because you are continuously telling yourself, I want to kill myself, I want to kill myself, I want to kill myself, you will soon, and if this doesn't stop, and God forbid, if uh, they are saying it at a point, like moment they get up in the morning or before they go back to sleep in the night, those are the points where your subconscious mind could be very susceptible or very impressionable. It is in that suggestible state. And if you make it a habit to use this kind of self damaging language in this way, it will become your reality. So the whole world will start looking like enemy. Everyone might feel like they're just out there to hurt you. This job is really sucking my blood. Like you will start going into the office and you will start feeling drained physically. And all of that will start happening because you have given your words to program you in a way that your life is a holy mess, is a horrible mess, and you are just going to be draining yourself out of it, that it will start happening by itself. You manifest it then. You program yourself to feel this way. And it's very real. And the even more dangerous thing is, see, there is a concept called as generalization, or in my head, I would call it as the magnification. In Hindi, also, we have this verb, this idiom, which says that in our head, a small sesame seed worth of thing, a thought, has magnified to become a whole molehill. Til ka taad ho gaya hai.
Take.
Now, what has happened? If one person one day felt hurt by their friend emotionally, that person never supported me, like something happened, they felt hurt or betrayed. And that person comes back home and they say, I just want to kill myself. What is the even use of living if I have friends like this? So this is a teenage frustration which has happened maybe at some age. But that thought process has stayed with them. If nobody is going to support me, it's better to kill myself off.
Hmm.
Now, their mind, if they use it too often, this language, their mind will start looking for evidences. Every
Hmm.
time I'm not supported, that person will start having, it's like they will have anchored this feeling to this thought. Every time they feel unsupported, they will feel like to kill themselves.
Hmm.
And then the reverse will happen. Everywhere they will find evidences of not being supported. The taxi wala did not stop for me for a second. The universe is conspiring against me. The red light, it just, it skipped 1 second. I know there was a glitch. Nobody saw it. My mom purposefully did this to hurt me. I had told her to give me XYZ menu, but I got something else. My dad purposefully, or, my dad doesn't love me because he paid the fees 1 day late, only after my reminder. Small, small
Hmm.
things which are completely innocent and inconsequential. In your head, they will start building up to the conclusion. You will become very touchy for them, and they will all start together come and build up to the whole conclusion that nobody loves me.
Hmm.
And we know how it's going to snowball. We discussed it. That was stage one. And it's going to snowball at some age to the point where you will actually feel like killing yourself. So be careful. Be very, very careful of the words that you're using. You can be true to yourself if you're really feeling frustrated. Rather than using fancy words, I want to kill myself. Say, I'm feeling extremely frustrated and hurt that you said this to me.
Hmm.
That's a more accurate and honest description of what you just felt.
Hmm.
I did not like the fact that when I needed you, you did not speak up on my behalf. So rather than being caught up in the emotion, have a discussion on how you felt at a deeper level. Have a feeling level thought process, not emotion level thought process.
Hmm. This really hits home. As you very rightly said, language, words, they carry energy, and the words we normalize in our daily conversations or jokes or these comments, they can shape how society treats the real painful reality of suicide.
Hmm. True. And the most heartbreaking thing is people who are really thinking of suicide, they will not tell you, today I'm feeling like to commit suicide in this kind of frustration. They may actually go and tell someone in the state of fear because part of them knows that this thought process is scary. They themselves are getting scared by their own thoughts. And they will go and tell someone in that sense of scared, in that sense of fear. Oh, I don't know what's happening, but these days, please keep a watch on me. I'm getting these kind of thoughts. Or if something happens to me, then you do this, like you take care of my property, you take care of my assets, you take care of this. Or like they'll be talking like this.
And also, you have said this that, and I also agree. No one will come to save us. We have to
Hmm.
save us. But uh, do you think that there is some danger as well in this message? Like some might interpret it as that we are on our own. Like how do we balance here the call to self healing with the need for community and external support?
You will always need a guru to help you. And if you're able to get, so the job of calling a guru or the job of asking for help is your own help. And that help, the moment you start asking for help, that needs to come from a place of faith or that light that you feel that things will be fine. That job is yours. Someone, of course, we are all guarded by angels and God. There is a higher power which is looking after all of us. But the will is for us to use. It is our karma. Karma means action. So the act of asking for help in the right state and recognizing the universal sign and then to accept help and to be gratefully walking on that path is the course of action which is only mine to take. That path no one else can walk for me. Someone can hold a torch for me. That is their role.
Hmm.
But the rescue, it is not a rescue mission. You are not powerless. You are gifted. It is not that you do not have courage or you are broken. You are whole. It's not that you do not have options. You have forgotten. That job is yours. That no one can do for you. That you have to do for yourself. So you do your part and do it right. And someone or something will come up to guide you forward. And then take one step at a time and walk and remember and reclaim yourself.
Very empowering, Atura. It's a very powerful refrain because it's not about doing it alone. Um, it's about, the reclamation of the part that knows how to rise while still, leaning on the hands that, they want to genuinely help you. So it's really empowering.
And to recognize that it is, you can do it. Even when you are broken, people feel a lot of time, even I have felt that, I am so broken, I can never be back again to wholeness. And then you look at the clouds for 10 minutes, and the clouds will teach you how they keep breaking into different shapes and forms and how they keep on getting back together, forming another cloud of different shape and size. You look at the ocean, and the drops of ocean will teach you that no matter how many times the water is going to splatter, it will always fall back into the wholeness of the ocean one more time.
Wo- Yes.
So we forget that aspect of ourselves, that you are not just broken, you're still whole.
Mm. Very, very invigorating. And before we wrap up, Nabila, I think this also aspect needs to be covered. It's a very, very
Mm.
again, it once again comes back to community support and responsibility. Now, uh, although suicidal thoughts they can feel isolating, but we are humans. We, as we have been called as a social well-beings, human social beings. So,
Mm.
um, for listeners who may be worried about someone right now, or if they are aligned in actively understanding that for someone who is going through um, this particular moment or this train of thoughts, they want to help, or they want to do something, what is the most compassionate first step they can take without making the person feel judged or labeled or pressured?
So I think, like I said, when there are moments when this person is high on a, it's a roller coaster journey. There will be a moment when this person is normal or nearest to normal,
Mm-hmm.
or even maybe the person is in a good state. Good state means their mind is working and they're not in that emotional mess. At least for that one moment. In that one moment, make an agreement or have a discussion with that person to take the next step of help. They can ask for help from the universe or they can go to someone they know. That one step is very critical, the first step, because that tells the party. So when you say that, okay, let's do XYZ thing to get you out of the mess or to help you get better or to help you achieve the impossible dreams, that first step tells the person that I am here for you. you are not completely hopeless. There is someone who can help you, and it is just a matter of couple of weeks or couple of months, and everything is gonna be fine. I understand you even though you do not say something. All of this is
Mm,
part and parcel of you, not the whole you.
mm,
In that one conversation, you can effectively communicate all of this to the other person without making the other person shrink back, feel uncomfortable with pity or attention or sympathy. It's like an action plan. You can share stories of people who have successfully made through the darkness because they
mm,
took some help. So the idea introduction that you need some help, and it is the professional, because quite definitely you will need a guru or someone who can help you out with it, who can hold the torch for you until you figure out the switch.
right.
So that kind of reframing of their mental space. And then to second step of that would be to recognize or to identify and figure out. So then you are in a moving phase that okay, you will actively visit couple of people or you will try out different modalities, and by then uh, the person who is experiencing such thoughts would have shifted the mental gear rather than succumbing to the trauma. That person, or accepting this is my condition, that person would have shifted the gear to, okay, let me try to solve it. I have done everything by myself. Let me take someone, third person's opinion or professional help. Okay, fine. Let's see. Maybe I'll recover.
Mm, I agree. And I think that's a lifeline for people listening, because it's not just about the person who is in crisis. It's about all of us knowing how to show up, with presence, without any fear or judgment, with love. And that's very powerful. That's there, that light that you see
Hmm.
at the end of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
tunnel.
True. We are, all of us are in this together, but at the end of the day, it is our journey alone.
Hmm.
And we are blessed with that much of power that we are not aware of. I feel that a lot of times uh, challenges are given to us by the universe because we forget how powerful we are.
Okay.
In these moments, we rediscover, oh, I never knew I could do this. And like, that's the most brilliant, moments and sparks of divinity in people that, they're like, oh my God, I never knew I could do this. I could do this way. It's beautiful to see them recover and flourish.
Yeah. It's like your superpower.
Yeah. Which you never knew you had.
Yeah. I'm my own superhero, a superhero.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So yeah, it's good. I mean, I don't think it's hopeless. And thankfully, we are in the age and day and time where there's a lot of awareness, and we have a lot of tools which are available to different degrees. Maybe it will work, but in my journey, at least, I do feel that for whatever reason or for whatever is the higher destiny, at least I could stumble upon and integrate certain things in a way that I know for a five by fifth session, by sixth session, I know this person will figure it out. I don't know what is your problem, but I know you can figure it out.
Hmm.
So people figure it out, there is no reason to commit suicide, and rather there'll be so much planning on what will I do next, and I'm planning for this trip, and I'm planning for this learning experience, and I have let go of these stupid people, and now I'm excitedly meeting these new people. I said, wow, life is happening back again.
Oh, um, I think it started with some heavy thoughts, heavy conversation and reflections, but definitely uh, ended on a very, very positive, uplifting note in here, Mridula. So, of course, it's a ritual in every one of my show. I have to ask if our listeners, they would like to connect with you. I know that for the fact that you provide discovery sessions and discussions,
We
inviting people
also
to share.
have a group healing call. There are a lot of times when people may not be even fully aware, or they may not be even ready for a full exploration and transformation process, but they may want some experience like little bit like one foot in the door kind of a situation. Then also we have a very nominally priced group healing sessions which happen every Saturday night, and you can just take those healings and just sleep nicely. So that will start uplifting you, and that will start dispelling your darkness slowly and gradually. So they're very, very powerful. We have had incredible experiences there as well. So, yeah, I mean, anyone who wants to walk on that path and wants to take the first step of reclaiming themselves, of course, there are many options available.
Super. And if they would like to connect with you, what will be the easiest way?
So we have discovery calls, we have paid consultations calls, or like the Saturday healing calls, the Zoom healing sessions. There are three options where you can, get in touch with me, and maybe then we can explore further.
Super. I'll make sure to add all the links, details for all of your listeners. And if I can just summarize, I'll try my best. I think I have personally realized, and I wish all of you to know this, that we are not broken and we are not alone. And suicidal thoughts, they may feel like an ending, but they can also be the soul signals uh, to the beginning of a deeper truth, a call to shift, to heal, and a call for homecoming, for returning to ourselves. So, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mridula, for giving your time, your energy, uh, and in helping us realize that collapse doesn't have to be the final word here.
Thank you so much, Sana, for having such a deeper discussion. I really do hope that nobody has to go through these thoughts. Nobody should be stuck in such a dark abyss. But if you do, please know that there's always a way out. And thank you so much for having such a discussion that was, all well rounded and encompassing for anyone who could be stuck there.
Thank you. Thank you, Mridula. Thank you. So listeners, if you're listening, if you are carrying or someone you know is carrying heavy thoughts, please reach out to someone you trust, to a professional, or even just to a friend, a genuine friend, because your voice matters, your life matters, you matter. And as we have heard today, even in the darkest night, the path to light is possible. Thank you for being here, for holding space with us. Until next time, stay gentle with yourself. And remember, even the breaking point can be a doorway to rebirth. Thank you.